Hello, welcome back to another video. In this video I am going to show you how to convert a HTML table into a JSON array. Somebody from the Power Automate community forum reached out to me and they are having trouble processing the table within this email. So we're going to go through how you can achieve that and turn it into a nice bit of JSON which you can use for further processing. Now, I've done a video on this before, but everyone says I go too fast, so I'm going to do the opposite on this one and take my time and do a slower version of what I normally do. So the first thing I like to do with this is, well, I've set up a flow with a trigger just on the subject filter budget report. So the first thing I'm going to do, just to get us started, is do a compose action, and I'm going to put the body of the email in there, and then just go straight for a test. So if I take the output, in fact I'm just going to copy it from there. The first thing to do really is to go into Visual Studio Code or another text editor and paste in the HTML. Now, as you can see, the HTML is all on one line more or less, so it is not easy to work with. So I'm going to do it Control-K, Control-F, and have Visual Studio just reformat it, just to make it easier to work with. That isn't what we'll get in Power Automate, so that is just something to be aware of. So I'm going to stick this on my desktop and just call it Untitled. And we'll just open it up and have a look at it. I'm going to press F12 to go into the developer tools to see what we've got. So actually, when we look in developer tools, we can see there's a table here where it says Dear Microsoft Customer, another table here where it says You are requested, and then finally a fourth table with the actual bit that we want to get into. So I think probably a reasonable start is splitting this HTML body on the table tag, and then we'll have an array of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elements maybe. I don't know. Let's just try it. So we'll rename this and we'll call it tables, and we will do split dynamic content body, and we will split it on an opening table tag. Now, if you don't know much HTML, this is going to make things slightly more difficult, but you should still be able to find a hook to get started with. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got an array of 5 elements. And this first one is everything up to the first table. And then we've got 2, 3 more tables. And then the last one, I think, is the table that we're after. Here you can see there's the column headings, budget name, budget type, which we see in the table. And this one has got this cell spacing 0, cell padding 0, etc. So that is that. So what we can do is I'm going to rename this to HTML table. And in that split, I'm going to do an expression called last. So it will no longer be an array because it's just going to do the split. And last is going to fetch the last element of that array and return it as a string. And here we are, it's got a string output. We have lost that opening table tag, which is going to make this invalid HTML. So I'm going to do concat table and then a comma. I think that's right. Yeah. And that should put the table tag back for us. So our HTML is now much reduced. So we are now from here downwards, all the way to the bottom of the file. We can see the table ends there anyway, and then it's just got the closing HTML stuff. So I think we'll probably get away with just that HTML table. So the problem is if we do a HTML to text action, and put in that HTML table, we'll get the output, but it won't be delimited in any way. So it will make it very difficult to turn into data. Here we've got the column headings, and then we start to get into some of the values, but they're all just in one long line, in one long string, so we can't do much with it. So let's get rid of that HTML to text action. And let's do a compose. And I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call it ReplaceTR. TR delimits the end of a row of data. That's where it begins, and that is where it ends. It's a bit more tricky to do it on the beginning of the tag because it's the style information in line, whereas the closing tag is what it is. So let's do a replace. The thing we want to replace on is HTML table. The thing that we want to replace is that closing TR tag, and then we will do a closing TR tag, but I'm going to put a pipe symbol there. So that is going to produce the effect of having that there. Now it is not valid HTML when it is like that, but I think we'll get away with it. I'm going to do another step. I'm going to call this one ReplaceTD. I'm going to say replace. The dynamic content will be the output of ReplaceTR. And I'm going to do TD /TD. And this time I'm going to put a caret. So that is going to have the effect of putting that there, like that. So it's okay that. And then I'm just going to try it and see how we get on. I'm going to do a compose action. I'm going to do split, ReplaceTD on a, no, I'm not going to do that actually. I would do a HTML to text action, put it into code view, and I'm going to use the output of ReplaceTD there. So hopefully that should give us a similar output to before, but the elements will be delimited. So here we can see the column headings, and we've got that caret symbol in between. And then we get to the end, and there is a pipe symbol before the next row of data. So that is not bad. So let's now try doing another compose action. And we will do, call this rows. And we'll do split the output of HTML to text on a pipe symbol. So let's just have a look at the results that produces. It's all right. We've got this first row here, which we don't want because it's column headings. And we have got /ends all over the place, which are new lines. So let's do a little compose action here. And I'm just going to put in press return, and that is going to be called new line. There is a fancier way of doing this, but this will do. And then I'm going to do replace new line. So say replace the output of HTML to text, find new line, and replace it with nothing. And then in our rows, instead of splitting the output of HTML to text, we will put replace new line there instead. That should clean things up a little bit. Okay, that is looking a bit better. We've got an empty one at the end, so we'll sort that out in a moment. That doesn't look too bad. We've got the delimiters there. So the first thing I want to do is get rid of this line completely, this first line with the column headings. But I will take it because it will be useful. I'll just put that, paste that into here. And this will just give us a record of what those column headings were called. Okay, so we want to get rid of that first row, and for that we can use an action, a function called skip. So skip will enable you to go past a certain number of records in an array. So we will say skip 1, and that will take that first row out. And for the last one, what we will do is another compose action. I could do it in the same action, but I don't want to make things too complicated. Could do a filter array. So many choices. We'll do that. Do a filter array. So we'll filter the output of rows, and we use an expression. We say length, trim, item. So this is going to get each element of the array, trim the white space, and give us back an integer which represents the length of the string. Or in this case, do nothing. And we'll say is greater than 0. Save. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another compose step. And I'm just going to call this one debug. I'm not going to keep this. I'm just going to go first, the output of the filter array. I'm going to say split. And I'm going to split it on a caret symbol. That's just going to give us a sample of what we're going to get back from the first legitimate record. So let's have a look. Our filter array, our header row is gone, so that's handy, and the output of our filter array has got rid of the blank entry. And our debug one should now show our separate elements that we would get in our next action, which is going to be a select. So this one is kind of complicated because I'm not actually sure which we're after here, the hyperlink or the name, the budget name, which is monthly cost. We'll go with that just because it seems easier. So now let's go into a select action, and we can use our debug action as our guide. So we'll go select, and we're going to use the output of the filter array as our data source. And then we need our field names, so we'll say budget name, and that is going to be item 0. So we're going to say split the current item on a caret, and we'll have 0, the zero element, which is this. because it's numbered from 0. So that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we've got an empty one at the end. Budget type. Same thing again, but this time we are working with element 1. Okay, so I've entered all of the column heading names in and I've put that split expression. I just want to go over what that split expression is doing, just in case it is not clear. When we come into this select action and we're using the body of that filter array, what we are receiving is, well, let's just do it again and we'll see. So this filter array contains elements that look like this. This is a string and it is delimited by these caret symbols. And there is one of these strings for every element, every row in that table. So when we come into our select action and we are using this input array, inside of the select action we are doing another split. So we're splitting on that caret symbol in line. So that's how we're getting to each element. I didn't actually look what our results were, so let's just have a look. So we do now have a nicely formatted JSON of results. The only one we need to figure out is this monthly costs one. So let's have a look at that on its own, which I've just done. No, I haven't. So we've got monthly costs, and then the first thing is this opening square bracket. So we can use that as the basis for a substring, just to trim that information out. So I will change this one. I'll write it over here so you can see it. So I'm going to do substring on item 0. I'm going to start at position 0, and then I'm going to do index of and then a square bracket. I'll just explain what that is doing. Substring is a function that gives you part of a string back as its output. Takes 3 parameters, or 2. The last one is optional. So the first thing is the thing that we want to create a substring of. The second parameter is what position within that string do you want to begin at. We want position 0. And then index of will return us an integer of the position of a substring. So we are searching for this opening square bracket, which is here, and that will give us that position. So index of, that should return probably 13. So this, without that index of, would look like that. So that's what index of is going to return. So if I put that now in here, instead of that split expression, that should give us back a nice clean string of just the budget name. Now this, well, that looks all right. So now, at this stage, this is now ready to work with. That is a JSON array, and you can do whatever you want with it from that point. You can go into and apply to each, and use the output of that select to do things such as insert the rows into an Excel table or a SharePoint list or a SQL database, use it as the basis for an email, or any of the things that you can do with Power Automate. I don't know what the original person that asked me the question wants to do with it, but he should now be in a position to do with it. And this is a bit more difficult than just parsing a regular email, so hopefully that's given him and hopefully you enough to go on with these string manipulation operations that you can achieve something like this with your emails. And you can also use this as the basis for scraping data directly from the web. It doesn't have to be from an email. You can use the HTTP action to go out, grab data from a site, and process it inside of Power Automate. See how you get on. Let me know if you get stuck in the comments, and I will try to help you out. If not, good luck.